Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Kumar Nayan from Chicago, Illinois, USA. First of all, thank you for investing your time to join this conversation with me here at Conference 42. The topic of this conversation is Beyond Prediction: How Generative AI is Reshaping the Future of Smart Manufacturing. Over the past decade, we have heard the words Industry 4.0 and artificial intelligence so often that they risk sounding like yesterday's news. Yet, something fundamentally new is happening right now. Generative AI is moving us beyond prediction and dashboards into a world where machines create new designs, new workflows, even new business models every day. This talk is not a technical deep dive. Instead, I want to paint a clear business picture: why generative AI matters, what results are already being achieved, what challenges you must anticipate, and how to get started without derailing day-to-day operations. By the end of the next half an hour, you will have a tested framework you can take back to your team. Let us begin with the outcomes that matters most and that make executives and shareholders sit up and listen. When the board asks, why now? Why generative AI? Here are some numbers that becomes important and which cannot be ignored. Almost 40% shorter product development timelines is achieved. At an aerospace supplier we studied, digital parts once took almost 18 months from concept to certification. After embedding generative AI design, that cycle fell to almost 11 months, and in another case, it was almost 9 months, while still meeting FAA standards. Almost 35% improvement has been seen in overall equipment efficiency. A consumer packaged goods (CPG) plant used a generative AI scheduling agent that resequenced SKUs hour by hour, and plant downtime dropped by roughly a third, and overtime costs fell right alongside it. Almost 40 to 42% lift in successful innovations have been seen. Think of this as an idea to impact velocity. A tier 1 auto supplier did not merely brainstorm more concepts, they commercialized more of them because generative AI simulation flagged manufacturability issues before the first prototype. These gains are not edge cases. In meta-analysis across more than 60 plants on 3 continents, we see similar order of magnitude. The takeaway: generative AI turns marginal Kaizen gains into step change performance. To appreciate why the gains are so large, let's compare conventional AI and generative AI. Conventional or traditional AI works with the boundaries of past data. It forecasts outcomes based on historical trends. It is predictive and reactive in nature. However, generative AI, on the other hand, explores what could be. It models multiple alternative futures. It synthesizes novel solutions, and a number of them. In manufacturing, this means designing a new process, a new product configuration, or even a new materials before a problem arises. That's for illustration. A predictive model warns that a press brake is likely to fail in the next 24 hours. That is valuable information. A generative model asks what new process or press brake configuration would boost throughput by 20% and minimize maintenance events in the first place. Then it produces a 3D toolpath file you can send straight to your CAM system. In short, generative AI collapses the gap between analysis and creation, and that is game-changing for manufacturing environment. Now let's take this to production floor. Let's zoom into three day-to-day benefits every plant manager cares about. Number one, eliminating the bottleneck. Real-time layout engines ingest sensors feeds and automatically shuffles between material flow, canvas position, and even AMR, that is autonomous mobile robot routes. Plants report almost 30% fewer micro stoppages and a visible smoothing of takt times. Number two is cutting energy by almost 20 to 25%. A European glass manufacturer used a generative AI energy optimizer that predicted furnace thermal inertia hours in advance. Power draw now rises and falls with the heartbeat of demand, rather than staying flat out. A savings of almost 2 million euros annually and a happier ESG scorecard. A third and most important aspect is hours, not weeks in changeovers. That's quick changeovers between processes or operations. During COVID, one electronics line needed to swap from automotive sensors to medical ventilator boards. Historically, that would have been at least 14 to 15-day revalidation. A generative AI process planner produced new SMT recipes overnight. First pass yield was 97% the next afternoon. Individually, each metric is impressive. Together, they create an operations flywheel. Higher throughput funds more AI plots or pilots, which uncover more savings and so on. Manufacturing strength means very little without a robust supply chain. Here is some example where generative AI shines. Knowing about disruptions in advance. For example, by blending weather feeds, port traffic APIs, and supplier health indicators, the model can flag a material shortage week, 2 weeks, or even a month in advance, prompting preemptive action that can be taken to streamline or smoothen the supply chain process. Identifying alternative vendor or supplier. Instead of a static approved vendor list, the generative AI dynamically compiles and risk scores new suppliers worldwide. Complete, complete those with the compliance documents that can be clicked through. Last but not least, logistics auto rerouting. There is a possibility that traffic is closed, or there is a closed bridge, or some accidents. The AI agent rerouted or re-optimizes the routes, repacks containers by cube utilizations, and reissues updated ETAs to customers. This all happens before a human planner's login. The ultimate result is this all pivot happens in hours, not in weeks. In a world where a stuck container can cost billions of dollars, that agility is priceless. Scholars and practitioners are converging fast. Let's picture a simple bar chart here. Research publications on one axis and industry implementations on the other axis. Research publications almost tripled from 2023 to 2024, and during the same time frame, pilot project implementations nearly doubled. How has this happened? This is simply because simulation to shop floor friction is falling. And there are three main reasons for that. Number one, foundation models are trained on massive engineering datasets are now available and accessible via APIs. Number two, industrial IoT maturity finally provides the volume and velocity of data generative systems crave for. Last but not least, cloud costs are sliding constantly, making petaflop scale training economically viable. The bottom line is sandbox phase is over, and we are in the mainstream adoption phase, and late movers risk structural disadvantages. The next question is, What separates the leaders from the laggards? There are four typical behaviors. Number one, laser focus on high value use cases. Leaders start with one pain point worth multi-millions, not a skunk works science project. Convergence of information technology team and operations team. In such scenario, they get the CIO and the plant engineers in the same room early. So MES or manufacturing execution system data meets cloud AI without endless middleware battles. Third, objective and transparent KPIs like overall equipment efficiency OE, scrap, and energy KPIs are published daily on shared dashboards, turning an anecdote into accountability. Last but not least, playbook-driven scaling. Once one line works, they replicate the same tech stack, same change management rituals across plants, regions, and business units. So what is the payoff? At least 35% faster time to market and 42% higher innovation hit rates versus peers sustained over a five-year horizon. So are these implementations smooth without any challenges? No. Let's not sugarcoat the hurdles then. You will generally face three big challenges. At the top of the list is data quality and governance. Main gap will be missing sensors on your legacy equipments. There is another possible noise, that is PLC timestamps are out of sync, so that data needs to be corrected. Key semantics here is there are 10 ways to spell the part IDs. Each company has different way, each team may have different way of spelling or naming a part. So this needs to be solved with a modern data fabric layer and a single owner for data stewardship. Second biggest challenge is security and IP protection. Generative models may ingest crown jewel process know-how without strict access controls and federated learning options. You risk leaking trade secrets. Zero trust architecture and secure model enclaves are must-have, not a nice-to-have in any generative AI implementations. Last but not least, algorithmic bias and model shift. In your historical dataset, under underrepresents new recyclable design resin, the AI may prefer old plastics, sabotaging sustainability targets. Continuous monitoring and periodic model card reviews keep the system honest. Companies that invest in these foundations upfront consistently capture higher ROI and face fewer boardroom surprises. Next million-dollar question is what is return on investment, and which is most important on any project implementation. The return on investment is not just impressive, it is exponential in this kind of implementation. In the first 3 months, companies invest in a strategy and system setup. By month 4 to 5, they begin seeing measurable process improvements. By month 7 to 8, they typically reach some kind of break even. And by end of the first year, many companies report 100% plus ROI with continuous compounding as the system learns and evolves. This is intelligent automation that pays for itself quickly and continuously. Now let's talk about some implementation approaches. To achieve successful implementation, there are four-phase playbook that can be implemented or utilized. Step one is, or phase one is assessment process, which can be between 2 to 4 weeks or 6 weeks, depending on the nature of an implementation. In this process, map datasets, rank pain points by value and feasibility, and secure leadership sponsorship. Phase two is data preparation, which can be between 6 to 8 weeks. In this phase, clean, label, and integrate sensors, manufacturing execution systems, ERP, that is Enterprise Resource Planning, and supplier data into common data warehouse. Next phase is pilot deployment, which can last between 8 to 12 weeks. Run one contained use case for high important business process. For example, generative AI scheduling on a single packaging line with crystal clear success criteria and measurable KPIs. Fourth phase is scaling, which is ongoing. Clone the stack and new use cases are basically identified. Institute AI ops for continuous monitoring. There needs to be put some guardrails, which are basically change management training, fortnightly stakeholders demos, and rollback plan. You hopefully never need to use, but in case you have to, that comes handy. Let's talk about the next steps. If you remember nothing else from this discussion or for some reason, just take these three actions back to the team. Number one, conduct a readiness assessment. In this assessment or audit, data, talent, culture are to be included. The gaps are need to be identified, and what are quick wins are hiding in plain sight that needs to be identified. Number two is basically select a lighthouse pilot, that is the key business process where it can be implemented, which is of high value and low political resistance. Let's think about packaging line, not the company's flagship process on day one. And then draft a 12-month roadmap that links milestones to financial KPIs and ESG targets. Share it widely and publicly on company dashboards, which basically talks about transparency and that creates momentum. Start smart, measure ruthlessly, scale fast. That is the recipe for durable transformation implementation. I'd like to thank you for your attention and engagement during this discussion. We are at an inflection point where factories are no longer constrained by yesterday's data, but powered by tomorrow's possibilities. Those who act now will set the pace for the next era of industrial leadership. I look forward to your questions and to discussing how we can partner on your own generative AI journey. Thank you very much.